Somewhere between the 1950s and today, an entire category of vegetable disappeared from the American garden. Not because it stopped growing, not because it stopped producing, because it was too productive, too permanent, and too free to fit into a system built around selling you food every single season. These were vegetables that grew like fruit trees. You planted them once. They came back every year, larger and more productive than before, asking for nothing, giving more than you needed, feeding families through seasons that had no grocery stores and no backup plan. Today we are going to talk about why we stopped growing them, and more importantly, how you start again. Drop in the comments right now. Have you ever grown a perennial vegetable, or has everything in your garden been replanted every single year? I read every comment. Tell me below. Before the first plant, here is the number that should stop you cold. The average American household spends between $5,000 and $8,000 on groceries per year. A significant portion of that is vegetables. Vegetables that could be growing permanently in a garden bed or container, returning every season without repurchase, without replanting, without ongoing cost. The gap between what people spend and what they could grow for free is not a small number. It compounds every year they wait. These are the vegetables that close that gap, permanently. Plant number 1, asparagus. In 1900, asparagus was in nearly every American kitchen garden. It was considered a foundational planting, one of the first things established in a new garden, because experienced gardeners understood that an asparagus bed planted today feeds your family for the next 25 years. By 2000, asparagus had largely disappeared from home gardens. It now lives almost exclusively in grocery stores at $4 to $6 per pound, available seasonally, shipped from commercial farms in California, Peru, and Mexico. The reason it disappeared from home gardens is not complicated. Asparagus requires patience. Year 1, you plant and wait. Year 2, you harvest lightly. Year 3, you harvest freely. In a culture that optimized for instant results, a 3-year investment before full production was reclassified as impractical. Nobody told the next generation that the payoff was 25 years of free asparagus from year 3 onward. Jersey Knight is the variety that changed the modern calculation. All-male hybrid, produces 3 times more spears than older varieties, resists the rust and fusarium diseases that ended asparagus beds in previous generations. Plant it once in well-amended soil, minimum 18-inch depth for root development, full sun, and walk away. Feed it once per year after harvest ends. That is the complete care requirement for a plant that will still be producing when your children are old enough to harvest it themselves. The math on asparagus is not close. 3 years of patience versus 25 years of free production. Every year you wait to plant it, you extend the gap between now and the moment it starts paying you back. Plant number 2, skirret. Sium cisarum. Most people reading this name right now have never heard it. 150 years ago, almost every serious kitchen garden in Europe and colonial America had it. Skirret is a root vegetable, a cluster of sweet, white, parsnip-like roots that grow from a central crown, harvested in fall after frost has converted their starches to sugar. The flavor is sweet, mild, nutty, closer to parsnip than carrot, with none of the bitterness that parsnip develops in warm weather. Historical records consistently describe it as one of the sweetest and most pleasant root vegetables in the kitchen garden. It was a staple crop in England, Germany, and the Netherlands, from the medieval period through the early 19th century. It appeared in American kitchen garden records through the colonial period. Then, hybrid root vegetables with better commercial shelf life and shipping durability replaced it in the seed trade. Skirret cannot be shipped well. It cannot sit on a shelf for weeks. It cannot be scaled into commercial production. So it disappeared from catalogs, then from gardens, then from living memory. It grows as a perennial clump that is divided in spring, each division producing a new, productive plant. Once established, it returns every fall with a larger root cluster than the previous season. It self-propagates from divisions indefinitely. You purchase it once. You never purchase it again. Hardy zones 5 through 9. Partial shade to full sun. Rich, moist, well-draining soil for best root development. Harvest after the first frost. The roots that are left in the ground after harvest become next year's crown. The plant literally replants itself. Plant number 3, scorzonera. Scorzonera hispanica. Scorzonera is a black-skinned, white-fleshed root vegetable with a flavor so distinctive that the chefs who know it refuse to substitute anything else for it. Oyster-like, mildly sweet, nutty with an almost vanilla undertone when roasted. It has been called the oyster plant, the vegetable oyster, and the poor man's oyster across centuries of European kitchen garden writing. It was grown across Spain, France, Italy, and Britain as a valued kitchen garden perennial from the 16th century onward. It appeared in American garden literature through the 18th and 19th centuries. It is now almost completely absent from American gardens and completely absent from American grocery stores. The reason is the same reason skirret disappeared. The skin is fragile. The root breaks easily. It cannot survive commercial handling, shipping, or shelf storage in the condition that makes it worth eating. The only people eating scorzonera at its actual quality are the people growing it. Grow it as a biennial or perennial. Roots left in the ground after partial harvest regrow and thicken the following season. In the second year, roots reach maximum size and flavor development. Harvest in fall after frost. Leave the crowns. They return in spring. Hardy zones 3 through 9. Full sun. Deep, loose, stone-free soil. Scorzonera roots grow straight down 12 to 18 inches, and any obstruction causes forking. Raised beds and deep containers solve this completely. Sow seed in early spring. Thin to 6 inches apart. Wait for fall. The patience required is measured in months, not years. Plant number 4. Good King Henry. Chenopodium bonus henricus. Good King Henry is a perennial vegetable that was grown in European cottage gardens for so long that its origin as a wild plant is no longer clearly traceable. It was simply always there, in the garden, reliable, producing 3 different vegetables from one permanent plant. The young shoots in spring are blanched and eaten like asparagus. The young leaves through summer are cooked like spinach. The flower buds before they open are eaten like broccoli. 3 harvest windows, 3 different preparations, 1 perennial plant that returns every year with 0 replanting. It disappeared from American gardens in the 20th century for the same reason as skirret and scorzonera. It cannot be commercialized. It does not ship. It does not hold on shelves. It does not generate repeat seed purchases. A plant that provides 3 vegetables indefinitely from 1 permanent planting has no place in a system built around annual transactions. Hardy zones 3 through 9. Partial shade to full sun. Average to rich soil. Drought tolerant once established. Divide every 3 to 4 years in early spring. Each division is a fully productive new plant. In ideal conditions, it self-seeds and produces volunteers throughout the garden. Once you have it permanently. Plant number 5. Caucasian spinach. Hablitzia tamnoides. This is the plant that grows like a fruit tree, and this is the one almost nobody in American gardening is talking about. Caucasian spinach is a perennial climbing vegetable native to the forests of the Caucasus Mountains. It grows as a vigorous vine, 6 to 10 feet per season, that dies back to the ground each winter and re-emerges in early spring from an increasingly large and productive root system. Every year the root grows deeper. Every year, the spring growth emerges earlier and more abundantly than the year before. By year 5, a single established plant produces more edible leaf than most households can consume. The leaves are mild, spinach-like, with none of the oxalic acid sharpness of true spinach. They are harvested continuously from spring through early summer. The more you harvest, the more the plant produces. Cook them like spinach, add them to soups and stews. Use them in any preparation that calls for cooked greens. It was brought to Scandinavian permaculture gardens in the 1980s and has become a valued food plant across Northern Europe. In America, it is virtually unknown. The reason is not that it does not grow here. It grows exceptionally well in zones 5 through 9. The reason is that it has never entered the commercial seed trade in a meaningful way. There is no marketing behind it, no garden center display, no seed catalog feature. Just decades of productivity for every gardener who found it and planted it. It grows in shade. It grows in poor soil. It climbs any structure available or sprawls as a ground cover without one. It is one of the most genuinely low-maintenance food plants available to American gardeners, and almost none of them know it exists. I want to stop here for a moment because something has been sitting with me while putting this list together. There is a record, a real, physical, written record of how our ancestors grew food before any of these plants were lost. What they chose, why they chose it, how they built gardens that sustained families without annual seed purchases, without grocery stores, without any of the infrastructure we now treat as necessary. I found that record, a source nearly 400 years old, written by people who were growing food when these plants were still in every serious kitchen garden in the world. What it describes about permanent food plants, about building a garden that feeds forever, completely reframed everything I thought I understood about food growing. I studied it and wrote it all down myself, so you would not have to go digging through 400 years of text on your own. If you want to, you can check our channel store. It is there. Plant number 6, Dobbinton's kale, Brassica oleracea. Standard kale is an annual. You plant it, harvest it, and replant it next season. Dobbinton's kale is a perennial. You plant it once, and it grows as a woody shrub, producing harvestable leaves continuously for years. The same plant. The annual versus perennial difference changes the entire economic calculation of growing it. Dobbinton's does not set seed. It is propagated by cuttings, which means it cannot enter the commercial seed trade the way annual kale varieties can. You cannot sell it by the packet every spring. Once a gardener has it, they take cuttings, and they have it forever for free. That structural reality is the reason it remains obscure while annual kale varieties receive enormous commercial promotion. The flavor is milder than curly kale, sweeter than lacinato, with none of the toughness that develops in annual kale as the season progresses. Because Dobbinton's does not go through a seeding cycle, it never becomes bitter or tough in the way annual kale does in summer heat. The leaves remain tender and mild throughout the growing season. Hardy zones 7 through 10 as a true perennial. In zones 5 and 6, it overwinters in a container moved to a protected space and returns each spring. Take cuttings in late summer, root them in water or moist soil, and you have new plants indefinitely. One original plant becomes unlimited plants. It never costs you money again after the first purchase. Plant number 7, Oca, Oxalis tuberosa. Oca is the second most important food crop in the Andes after the potato. It has been grown as a staple food crop by Andean communities for over 8,000 years. Outside of South America, it is almost completely unknown, despite growing easily in temperate gardens and producing tubers with a flavor and versatility that rivals the potato in every culinary application. The tubers taste like a cross between potato and sorrel, mild starch with a bright lemon acidity that softens with cooking or sun curing. Roasted oca caramelizes at the edges and develops a sweetness that no potato produces. Sun cured for a week after harvest, the acidity fades and the sweetness intensifies. They are eaten roasted, boiled, in stews, or raw when very fresh and thinly sliced. In a garden bed, oca grows like a bushy annual, 18 to 24 inches tall, spreading, with clover-like leaves. The tubers develop underground through summer and are harvested after the first frost in fall. Save a handful of tubers from the harvest. Replant in spring. They are now your free seed stock for every future season. You purchase oca once, you never purchase it again. Hardy is an annual in zones 5 through 10. In zones 9 and 10, it can be left in the ground year-round as a true perennial. Full sun. Average to rich, well-draining soil. Water consistently through tuber development. Harvest after frost has killed the tops. Plant number 8, Mashua, Tropiolum tuberosum. Mashua is the third major Andean tuber crop, grown alongside potato and oca for millennia, equally productive, equally versatile, and almost completely unknown outside its region of origin. It grows as a climbing vine, 6 to 10 feet, with round leaves and bright orange-red flowers that are edible and ornamental simultaneously. The tubers that form underground are harvested in fall after frost. The flavor raw is intensely peppery, almost radish-like, with significant heat. Cooked, The heat mellows, and a sweet, earthy quality emerges that has no direct comparison in any tuber available in grocery stores. Like oca, mashua is replanted from saved tubers. Purchase it once, save tubers from your harvest, and you have free planting stock for every future season indefinitely. Hardy zones 7 through 10 as a perennial. In colder zones, grow as a season annual with tubers dug and stored like dahlias through winter. Full sun to partial shade, rich, moist soil for best tuber production. One of the most ornamental food plants on this list, the flowers alone would justify growing it even if the tubers did not exist. Plant number 9, 9-star perennial broccoli. Standard broccoli produces one central head, then side shoots for a few weeks, and then it is finished. You pull it out and replant. 9-star perennial broccoli produces multiple white heads per season, the 9 stars it is named for, and then it comes back the following year and does it again, for 4 to 5 years from one planting. It was a valued kitchen garden plant in Britain through the 19th and early 20th centuries. It disappeared from commercial catalogs as annual hybrid broccoli varieties with more uniform commercial heads replaced it in the seed trade. Annual varieties can be sold every spring. A variety that produces for 5 years without repurchasing cannot. The heads are smaller than commercial broccoli, individual florets rather than one large central mass, but the flavor is sweeter and more complex than any annual broccoli variety, particularly in the 2nd and 3rd year when the plant is fully established. Hardy zones 4 through 9. Full sun. Rich, deeply amended soil. The single critical maintenance task: remove every head before it flowers and goes to seed. A 9-star that is allowed to set seed terminates its perennial cycle and dies after that season. Harvest every head promptly. The plant rewards this with more heads the following season. Plant number 10, Welsh onion, Allium fistulosum. The Welsh onion has been in continuous cultivation for over 2,000 years across Asia and Europe. It does not form a bulb. It grows as a clump of upright green hollow stems, harvested from the outside while the center continues producing indefinitely. Cut what you need. The plant regrows. You harvest again in 2 to 3 weeks. This cycle has no endpoint. It was a fundamental kitchen garden plant in Europe through the 18th century. It was gradually replaced by bulb onions and scallions in popular cultivation because bulb onions could be stored, shipped, and sold by the pound in quantities that a continuous harvest perennial clump does not produce in a single transaction. You cannot build a commercial onion operation on a plant that you sell once and that then supplies a household indefinitely. But you can build a household food supply on exactly that. Hardy zones 3 through 9. Evergreen in mild winters, green and harvestable when everything around it is dormant. Divide every 2 to 3 years. Each division is a fully productive new plant. One original clump becomes unlimited clumps over time. The mathematics of this plant work entirely in your favor, and they never stop working. Here is the answer to the question this video started with. Why did we stop growing these vegetables? Not because they stopped working, not because they became difficult, because a food system built on annual transactions, seeds purchased every spring, produce purchased every week, has a structural incentive to replace permanent food plants with temporary ones. A garden that feeds forever and costs nothing does not generate repeat revenue. It generates food security. Those two things are not compatible with the same business model. The knowledge of how to build that garden did not disappear. It was preserved in old books, in heritage seed libraries, in the gardens of people who never stopped growing what worked. It is recoverable. Every plant on this list is still available. Every one of them grows in American climates. Every one of them does exactly what the vegetables you are replacing every spring cannot do. It comes back, larger and more productive, year after year, without costing you anything. The $0 vegetable garden is not a fantasy. It is a decision, made once, paid back forever. Tell me in the comments which plant on this list you had never heard of before today. And tell me your zone, because that determines which of these performs best where you live, and I want to make sure what I put out next is actually useful to you. Subscribe to Gaia Lost Vault right now. Every week we go back into the record, The old books, the forgotten crops, the knowledge that got buried when permanent food systems stopped being profitable. And we bring it forward. This is what this channel is for. You do not want to find us a year from now and wish you had started today. Go plant something permanent. I will see you in the next one.